Knee pain sucks. It affects every step of every day, and it can be so debilitating that it actually prevents you from doing your regular daily life activities comfortably. And it certainly will discourage you from doing anything fun, like taking a walk with your dog, running around with your kids, going on a hike, skiing, you name it, biking, running. Any of those things require happy knees. Dancing, I work with a lot of dancers with knee issues, and it's absolutely devastating. So let's talk about knee pain and the basics of how to fix it. Our sedentary lives typically result in our leg muscles becoming tight and weak. Now, a lot of people think tight, okay, I'm gonna stretch it. I thought that too for like the first 10 to 12 years of being a fitness and yoga instructor. And I would tell people, hey, if it hurts, stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. And that's what a lot of the data would say in terms of like rehabilitative exercise back then. This was quite a while ago. And then I noticed that it really just didn't offer people long-term solutions. So when I went into rehabilitative exercise training, and I did that through a series of certifications and Pilates and working with physical therapists, what I realized was tightness is a weakness issue. So let's look at the leg muscles and see where tightness and weakness can be fixed. When we stand, or when we sit, our knees are not going into their full range. First, a lot of people will stand and either lock their knees or they'll stand and they'll bend their knees overly. So standing is not a way for you to create strength. Your body knows how to stand just kind of as a default. Sitting actually offers even more issues because sitting shortens the hip flexors and the hamstrings. And then as well, there's the whole lower leg to think about. So when we're sitting or we're standing, our feet are basically just stuck in this position. Now, we are not going out and walking over uneven surfaces or climbing or swimming a whole bunch or basically being quite active where we're using the full range of motion of our ankle, we're using the full range of motion squatting even to poop, to give your knee that full range of motion, bending over to lengthen the hamstrings. A lot of us are just in this either standing or seated position most of the day. And we want to go out of our way to fix that because that causes tightness and weakness basically in every major muscle group. So let's look first at the upper leg. You have your hip flexors and you have your quadriceps. So if your hip flexors are tight and or weak, and your quads are also tight and or weak, you want to fix that. And there's a couple exercises that I really, really love. The first is actually to find a shoulder bridge. So being able to lift your hips up. Now this is going to activate the glutes, which lengthen the hip flexors. It will also activate the hamstrings, especially if you do a little pullback from your heels, and it will lengthen your quads. So you can get to the point where you can really pull your knees far over your toes. Now, one of the things that has been the most misunderstood, and it was just wrong of what was in the fitness industry for a long time, was always keep your knees behind your toes. Absolutely not. You need this, if you think about going up a stair, right? When you go up a stair, what happens? Your knee goes over your toe before it straightens out. It's a natural part of your healthy range of motion. So we also need to learn how to lengthen the quads in a way that they're also strong. So for someone who's just starting out, I have them put their foot on a chair and just practice getting that knee over the toe. This, to a lot of people, will not be too demanding. It won't hurt them too much. They'll get that nice little stretch. And then you can take that foot onto the ground and you can practice doing lunges like that forward and back. You can also do off the legs. So see my knees like basically in front of my toes here. And then we can start looking at that in squats. So we can do our regular squat where our knees stay behind our toes, but to address that longer quadricep length, we would start doing a squat with the knees going over the toes. Gasp, oh my, totally cool, great thing to do for your quads. Another thing that you can do to progress that is start to work into a sissy squat. So this is where you would be up onto the balls of the feet. And you would really try to get, I'm still working on this one, your knees far in front of your toes, eventually bringing your knees to the ground if possible. Now, if that's too much and there's foot things to consider and you're okay with kneeling, you can also look at this range of motion on the knees going back and forth. So these are just a few examples: shoulder bridge, various types of lunges, various types of squats, of what you can do to train your quadriceps to be long so you can bring your butt to your heel no problem, and also to be strong, because remember, stretching is temporary symptom relief. It is not a long-term solution. And then the next thing to think about is, so we've opened up the hip flexors, and you can do this through various, again, hip thrusting exercises. Shoulder bridge is one of my favorites. By the way, you can start to add resistance, so putting weights on any of your lunges, your squats, or your shoulder bridges. The next thing we really want to think about is the back of the upper leg, and this is the hamstrings. So hamstrings tend to be tight and weak, which again is a terrible situation. And they support the knee joint from the back. So it's really important that they're healthy, strong, and long. So one of the things that you can do to train your hamstrings to be strong and long is to simply start out lying down using a band. You get a little stretch here, and then you get a little strength here. If laying down is not an option, you can start doing that with your leg up and down in a chair. And this is also going to work the quads a lot, but it lengthens the hamstrings. And then you can start doing body weight deadlifts, simply where you come down and up. You can start to add a little resistance with a band. And then you can also do this one leg at a time. And then when you're ready, you can start adding really heavy weight. You start light first. And in a proper deadlift, you want your hips to go back, you want your weight in your heels, and you really want your bum to stick up. So looking forward can be really useful. Coming up and getting that hip thrust at the top helps you open up the hip flexors and engage the glutes. So we're getting the whole back line. I am purposely trying to stick my bum up so I get that stretch in the hamstring. And hamstrings engage there. Another torturous but super great version for strengthening the hamstrings is, say you do this the easy version. You come onto the back in your shoulder bridge or no shoulder bridge. You start here, and then you come up into a shoulder bridge and slide the heels forward and back. And for a lot of people, even when they first try that, their hamstrings are going to cramp like crazy. And cramping is not a bad thing. It usually tells us that muscle didn't know how to engage in that position. And now your brain is starting to build a communication pathway to that muscle, and the brain just gave the muscle too much energy because it's new to this kind of contraction. So when you try a new exercise and you feel a cramp, congratulate yourself, because you are actually on the way to figuring out how to use that muscle properly. So there is hip flexors, quads, hamstrings, and then the lower leg is super important as well. Many of my clients, by the time they come to me, have barely any range of motion in their calves, in their ankles. That's not awesome. So we have 3 tiny muscles in the front. Tibialis anterior is one of the most famous. And then those same 3 muscles in the back, plus 2 really huge ones, the gastrocnemius and soleus muscles, plus there's a little muscle at the back of the knee called popliteus. And these are all really important for stabilizing the knee. And a lot of people don't think about their lower leg when they think about knee stability, but it's super, super important. So one of the things that I have people do is, again, if we need to start really gentle, we'll just work with ankle circles, pointing and flexing, and really working on the full range of motion. You can do this as well, laying on the back, which your quad will get some extra work, holding your leg up. You can also add a little bit more resistance by putting a band around the foot and practicing your points and flexes that way. And then when you're ready to stand, two things that are super, super useful for training the lower leg is to actually put yourself on a block or a stair and do full range calf raises, all the way down and all the way up, all the way down and all the way up, so you get that stretch. And finally, because that's gonna mostly focus on the calf strength and not the front of the shin, getting your butt against the wall, so you're leaning back against the wall and doing these heel raises. This is also a great exercise for strengthening the front of the shin. So when it comes to knee stability, just remember, it's not just about stretching tight stuff. It's about strengthening everything that supports the knee joint. And two things that we didn't talk a whole lot about, but they're also very important, are the inner thighs and the outer hips, including tensor fasciae lata, which attaches to your iliotibial band or your IT band. So if your inner thighs are weak, typically the outer is going to be extra tight. This causes usually TFL to get extra tight, and then that IT band to start causing problems, which is IT band syndrome. So not only do we want to, again, you can do like a cross-legged stretch to get that a little bit more open, a figure 4 to stretch out those tight outer hips. All great stuff to do, but ultimately we want to train our inner thighs to be strong and our outer hips to also be strong, but also not too tight. So things that I like to do for the inner thighs are simply doing the squats with a block between the knees, doing shoulder bridges with the block between the knees, doing anything that will get your inner thigh, so doing Pilates side leg lifts like this, whole bunch of those to get the inner thighs strong, but we don't want to leave them by themselves. So that's actually why I love these booty bands as they work on the outer hip. So doing various types of clamshells, which a clamshell is here. So you're working the outer thigh here, you can lift the feet, you can lift the leg, but also doing internal rotation as well as external rotation. So teaching your body how to turn the femur bone in and turn the femur bone out. So working these will not only affect your knees positively, they're gonna stabilize your hips like crazy, they're gonna give your low back better support, they're gonna help you improve your posture, because when you are imbalanced in your hips and inner thighs, that's gonna cause a lot of instability. But also you may notice that when you squat, your knees fall in, or your feet are always turned out, or your feet turn in. So there's muscles as well on the inside of the thighs that need to be trained, and on the outside of the hips that need to be trained, and also they tend to be tight, so making sure that they're not too tight. And there are muscles also even on the side of the shin that are important. So paying attention to your foot position while you are doing squats, while you are doing lunges. A lot of people will do their lunge and their foot turns out. Maybe they take a lot of yoga and they're used to doing their warrior pose. We don't want this for a lunge. We want the heel up. Same thing for anything where your leg is lifting in the back. We don't want the leg turned out, because you are working your hamstrings unevenly and you're working too much in your hips and not enough in your inner thighs. So we want that leg to be neutral when you're doing any leg lifts to the back. So quadricep strength and length, hip flexor, length, and also strength. Your hamstrings being strong and long, your inner thighs being strong enough and also not too tight so you can take your leg out to full range of motion. That's the strength of your hip, so finding balance between the inner thigh and the outer hip. And finally, but certainly not least important, is your lower leg. Those shin muscles in the front so you're able to lift your toes, those shin muscles in the back so you're able to lift your heels, as well as making sure that the inside-outside balance is good so that your knees track over your second toes and you don't have a weird rotation where your toes are out and your knees go forward, or your toes are in and your knees don't follow. So making sure that that tracking is correct. That's your lower leg being super strong and stabilizing your knee as well. So I hope this has helped you. If you want a step-by-step process, I have a course called Protecting Your Knees, Ankles, and Feet on my website. You can head there right now and register for the course. You will have lifetime access to 12 different practices. 4 of the practices are going to be about an hour long. We learn a little bit of anatomy as well. And then 8 of those practices are going to be shorter, anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes in length. These little practices that you can put into a busy day to make sure that you're keeping your legs balanced, strong, and flexible so you don't have to suffer with knee pain. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.